too.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radical Books and Activists. I am Misael Juarez and my co host, Kitty de la Sombra.
Hi, everyone. And
Yeah.
just so everyone knows, because I know we're talking about some things today that people might have opinions about and want to jump in. We do have live comments on our YouTube, so I will be watching the YouTube feed so you can join us as we talk about our wonderful Misael's new book. But of course, we can't possibly ignore what's happening in the news right now.
Right. Today, a lot of people are also demonstrating. Is that correct, Kitty?
Well,
In
so
Chicago?
yeah, so I'm coming from the suburbs of Chicago, and today is the Pride Parade in Chicago. Now, I know there's Pride parades going on in several cities. It's toward the end of June, so most major cities that haven't had their Pride Parade, they're having it this week. And in Chicago, I have eyes in the parade, and they have had a lot of the floats have had positive signs, support, like talking about how having the Roe v. Wade appeal is a tragedy, but they've also had a conversion camp come and protest the parade. It was a nonviolent protest, but it was aggressively loud.
Right.
And
So lots of things going on, and thank you for updating us on that. So let's start off with a simple gesture. I think. Well, I should start it off with a simple gesture. I want to get in before I get into the details of the book that Barrio Blues and myself are launching coming soon. Um, let's talk about abortion and the implications and possibly the impact it might have in our society. I believe that Kitty, you yourself know more about that situation since you're also a mother and, and I mean a dad. Sorry, excuse me, a
thank you.
dad, a father, and you know about that. So, can you speak on that from your perspective? What how you feel about it and your thoughts on that?
Well, the Roe v. Wade reversal is not a pro-life decision. It's a pro-birth decision because it means that there will be a lot of situations where it women will die from having I'm trying to and the hesitation is I don't want to use like inflammatory language, but at the same time, like women will die or be jailed for things like having a miscarriage. Because if a woman has a miscarriage and it's incomplete, they need a procedure often called a D&C, which is where the remains of the tissue is removed. That, by definition, is an abortive procedure. And
Can I ask you a question right now?
yes,
Um, so so if so it, the is the law saying um or the states, I believe, are what's going on, because I feel I'm a little confused here. Um, if women do not have the doctor says a woman cannot have a healthy baby, she's not allowed to have an abortion. She has to have it anyways. Is that what's going on?
well, it depends on the state. So what happened was when Roe v. Wade was repealed, um, at that point, it became up to the state. And so some states, like Texas, that is a state where now if a woman if a pregnant person needs any kind of like even a very early on, it's not going to be viable. It's an ectopic pregnancy, which is the pregnancy isn't even in the uterus. It's non-viable and on the fallopian tubes where it will not develop ever into a fetus. It will never become a baby. The woman, if it is not removed, will die when it ruptures. It is an absolute death on everybody's part. They have to leave the state to have that removed. And again, that's not a baby. That's not a potential baby. And that's so in states like Texas, where it's immediately going to be like every part of it, even the drugs, like there are, when it's so early that, we talk about abortion and people think about babies, but for the most part, what you have, and actually in Texas, I believe it might not, I think they might still have, I might be wrong, and they might still have the Heartbeat Act part. So, okay, before I'm technically wrong on anything, I will say there's some confusion for everyone right now because things are changing very quickly. States have what are called trigger laws, which is that there are laws that are ready to be in place as soon as Roe v. Wade was pulled. And then there are states that are adding new laws as this is happening. They're meeting and changing things. In some states, as soon as there is fetal heartbeat, that counts. However, at that point, it is still not like, it's still a mass of cells, really. You would not see a baby, like a fetus. Even when you look at the sonogram, when a woman is pregnant and you have this what looks like a tiny baby, we're not talking about yet that, right? We're talking about some essentially a mass of cells that's starting to spread. And I think that's one thing that politicians really push, is the fact that the science of what's going on is very hard for people to understand because it's not explained frequently. So in some states like Texas, pregnant people already have to flee the state to get any kind of abortive procedure, including pills that will make essentially a miscarriage happen. And then you have states where it's that fetal heartbeat or 6 weeks. Well, most people don't know that at that point that they are pregnant, unless they are frequently taking pregnancy tests, or they take a pregnancy test for a procedure at the doctor or something like that. And yes, there are situations where a lot of the states are saying even with no exceptions of danger to the baby or mother, not even in cases of assault. And those are situations where, of course, you have someone fleeing the state to get that. And they are talking about having, and I'm not sure if this has been instated yet, and I should have checked, it then being illegal, so that the woman, when she comes back to her home state, can be arrested for having had an abortive procedure, even out of state. Whoever drove her, the doctor, as long as he or she wasn't in the home state, I don't think can at this point would be arrested. But like literally, so like a pregnant person could be arrested for having an abortive procedure to save her life when her options are save her life or die and the fetus dies.
Wow. So I hear a lot of things going on. It's really, I think it's a really disrespect to all life, in the sense that if you're risking the mother's life, how could there be more opportunities for them to grow as a family and things like that? But I also hear that the laws are very harsh in punishing the woman who is asking for an abortion. Um, with that said, I feel like the, the the world is going to see a lot of momentum build up really quickly, and I believe in other places like New York and in LA, people have been gathering to figure out what's going on. The I think the there might be a possibility that it might be overturned if there is a collective movement um, to help out these women who are in crisis. I'm not quite sure exactly what I could say as a male, but I do believe that opportunities in the future, such as the new elections, we might see somebody like Hillary Clinton enter and try to champion that for women. So in that sense, I kind of feel like politics, like like the Democrats took the loss on purpose. It feels like they didn't even put a fight to do that, to help, not so that abortion could be legal. And I feel like they did that in a strategic way to gain the momentum for the next politics. But things always change, you know. So that's just a hypothesis of that I have. It's not necessarily something that I read, but I like to think of shit like that in. I'm sorry, excuse my language. I like to think of stuff like that in the future and how things are gonna. I like my imagination goes to work. But we're not basing this stuff on imagination. Things are really going on right now in the world, and it's a critical point in history for women.
Let's so in talking about like the government part of this and kind of what can be done. Um, First of all, one really serious concern is that one of the next things that they might be trying to do is, and some of the governors have actually talked about this, is going after uh, the ability to get contraception, so like birth control, which would be, like really dangerous. I mean, if you can't get birth control, that's, so what they want females to, like, female born, to choose between, you can either pop out, endless babies, or you can be celibate, kind of. But but one of the very immediate things is, um, who's taking care of these kids? Like, what is the government going to do for all these babies? Because right now we have a formula shortage, and there's tons and tons of kids who are in the foster system, who are in group homes, who are in just places waiting for someone to parent them. And if you had, if a 14-year-old was like, I want to adopt a baby, they would be like, no way, you're 14, you can't adopt a baby. If an 18-year-old was like, I want to adopt a baby with my boyfriend, they would be like, you can't yet. Like, you're not ready. You won't pass the requirements. But yet, if a 14-year-old gets pregnant, now they want to say, well, you made the decision to do what it took to get pregnant, so now you have to have that baby. I mean, that's ridiculous. The same thing, even if someone's 18 and ends up pregnant, they're like, oh yeah, now it's like, well, you made that decision, and so you have to have that baby. And even I'm very grateful that Jesus who is at this point, she is at an event, which is why she can't be online with us, but she is popping up in our chat. And she pointed out something that I'd forgotten about addressing, which is that even if people want to adopt, like, okay, there's all these babies in the system, it can cost over $60,000 to adopt a baby. Like, the paperwork, the lawyers, the background checks, the home evaluations. And people don't have that money. So there are couples who genuinely want children. And they can't have them, infertility issues, things like that. And they can't afford to adopt the unwanted children. And then people who are in poverty are ending up with children that they can't, it's not necessarily that they don't want them, but they know that they can't take care of them. One great example of the circular, the cycle that this causes is, you have young, especially, like, so you have like a single mom who maybe knew she couldn't take care of the baby, did not intend to get pregnant. So then the kid is young, CPS gets involved because, the kid is showing up to school with no food and dirty clothes and things, just because they're not being abused, but the mom has nothing, right? So they take the kid out of the home and they put the kid into a foster home. And then the foster parents get money to take care of the kid. The mom didn't, but now someone else did. Like, that's a cycle that happens.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like you covered a lot of area and informing us about all the things that are going on. I feel like there's probably more things that are gonna pop up later on this week. The thing about having children in places, which probably will happen, you'll see a rise of foster care systems, probably as a rise of detention centers, probably a rise of juvenile hall centers, simply because the mothers will be absent. What if a mother who is expecting and already has children ends up going to jail for having an abortion because she already has too many kids? And that's something that, to me, is quite frightening too, because the mother goes to jail, but what happens to the rest of her children?
Right,
what's going to happen to the rest? And that's why I mentioned detention centers, mentioned things like that. We're already seeing a rise of detention centers during the Trump administration, when they were putting the immigrant youth in these centers. And that concerns me. I feel like that could be one of the direct results in what's going on with abortion, because abortion could start so many issues, and there's so many outlets that could lead to so many devastating things for our communities. But I'm really concerned about these women who are in a situation right now, who are planning an abortion, who are planning these things, and now they can't do it unless their state is sanctified by its laws. So there's so many things that I wish I could say about this right now, but as the thing evolves, I must be. I'm more concerned with people who have to do it because they have a lot of children. I'm very concerned for these kids. What's gonna happen to them? Um, I'm concerned about these mothers who are unable to do it because what is gonna happen to them? How much? And I feel like the more people um, fight for justice and things like that, I feel like the government doesn't really care about issues concerning minorities, uh, and abortion. I feel like is a minority issue, um, because I feel like the poorest and darkest people are having. I feel like the most abortions. If I remember the stat that I read a while back, so and I don't want to base this on stats. I want to base this on the human heart and things like that. So it's a different situation. Uh,
But I have a question for you,
yeah,
because one of one of the things that comes up in this conversation is, um, one of the easiest forms of birth control at this point would be then for men to get vasectomies. Like, a vasectomy is a lot of times you can get them that are reversible. So a young guy doesn't think he wants kids, but he gets a reversible one so that, if 10 years down the line he settles down, decides, hey, I do want to have kids, can have it reversed, still have kids. How do you feel about that? Putting the part of the birth control back in the hands of the men to help the situation by you know t- taking more of the responsibility.
I feel like that is a that is a solution. If people don't want be be put in a situation where abortion is the case, that is a definite solution. Is again is up to the males. I myself I practice celibacy. You know, simply because I wasn't ready to go explore that much in a relationship to have kids, because I feel like and I feel generally that when I was a young father, I didn't know what I was getting into. Um, Now with my diagnosis with mental illness and things like that, I was kind of like scared to drop a seed, and I was going through paranoid schizophrenia and things like that. So I didn't tie myself up, or I didn't tie myself. What do you call it? Cut or whatever it was. The procedure
Yes,
was.
with
Um,
vasectomies you can get it tied. That's the reversible. Cut is the non-reversible.
right. I didn't do that. I just stayed away from relationship simply because I was dealing with paranoia, and and I felt like something terrible would happen to my partner, because I felt like the void and all of the, the world was after me, and I didn't. I was scared to drop a seed, and so I practiced celibacy for a few years, and continue to do so now. Um, uh, that was my, I guess that was my choice, and I feel like I saved whoever my if I were to have a partner. When you're paranoid, you want your seed to live, and people do reckless things to their partners, probably like just hit it and dip, and leave them with a baby, and simply because you're paranoid, so there's so many things that go on in that aspect, in that field. But in my situation, I was able to control myself, which I didn't see myself doing when I was a younger man. A younger man, maybe I could talk about this. What can men do to 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 to, to help the woman not be put in this situation? Because a lot of men put their women in situations where they say put out or get out, or these kinds of things that media feeds us. The media feeds us. One way about doing that is be conscious. While what you're doing. Contraceptives, I know, is a big deal. I heard it myself. I know the locker room chats, and I heard all these things. I myself even participated when I was in my younger 20s. Why? Because I didn't know any better. You know, but I understand now as a father who's lived through the process. I was to be 40 years. My daughter's almost 20 years old. Watching her grow up and participate in self-conscious acts, it's really making me think, like, what would I say to her partner as her
Yeah.
father?
Well,
What would I say? Hey man, and there's only I feel like there's only so much I could say as her father. What is his father teaching him about that stuff? So of course I'm aware. Of course I'm up in arms, because my daughter's at that age where most the Latinas get pregnant, around this time. And so men must do it's not research, because it's not what we have to do as men. Doesn't take reading books or things like that. It just takes patience. And you can't find that in books. It takes patience. It takes responsibility. It takes awareness of self, awareness of your body, of your intention, and things like that. Those are the type of things you can't pick up in books or in schools. Those are the type of things that are passed down, and things like that. But I understand you're also a father. So what where are you at in this situation? Because I don't want to like make you feel like you're left out or anything like that. You want to call
well,
yourself a father, then I involve you. You know what I'm saying?
my daughter is only just, she's almost 7 months old. So I'm relieved that as a baby it's going to be a long time before I have to worry about her, being old enough to, not even just old enough to like date, but even old enough to be, in hit puberty, all of that. Because it's a scary world. It's a really scary world. Um, but I, I, I'm very, very concerned about the fact that we're now with the fact that this has opened up. Um, that they've said the next thing that's going to be gone after is same-sex marriage. And my partner and my partner is female, so we, that's terrifying. We'll probably never be able to get married, which means that I probably will never be able to adopt my daughter legally. And the fact that they are talking about a lot of issues, with, like, essentially all of this information that's coming up, and all of the things that literally these senators and the Supreme Court is talking about is like going back decades, and talking about like making the world, or the United States, because I know there are parts of the world where it's already like this, so unsafe for people who are LGBT, who are non, people of color in general, right? Um, for people who have disabilities, for, just the list goes on. And I look at that and I think about when somebody talks about, um, Brown versus education, my my daughter is half black, and I'm like, you know, what what in the world, like, what is this world that we brought her into? Like, that's terrifying to me. And I I really think this is a really awful time to be a parent, uh, of a small child, because, like, how do you even think about protecting them? Like, how do you look at a world in, the United States right now and think to yourself, like, um, in a 10-year plan, in a 20-year plan, how, when are people going to stand up and say we need to uh, we need to fight for justice, and not have that mean storming buildings, but have it mean we are going to change the laws. We are going to get enough people together to make actual change, because spilling blood and tearing up buildings has done nothing for us, in the past decades. It hasn't. Um, and I mean, that's my opinion on it. Like, and I know, um, you've lived in other parts of the country that I haven't, so I'm interested to hear, your take on it.
What I believe you're saying is there are challenges that we must deal with every day. Organizing, the challenge of the world is scary. I think it's scary for even animals, that are always out there in the survival mode. And when you think of the ones in the prairies and the ones in the forest, always constantly surviving. For myself, I grew up as an at-risk youth. I grew up in a poor neighborhood, poor community, and gang violence was the issue. You couldn't be a 14-year-old dressed, trying to dress the fashion without being targeted. You know what I'm saying? At that moment, um, through that effort, through those moments, we learn survival instincts. We learn watch what you say, watch what you wear, watch where you're at, because the idea was it's not where you're from, is where you're at. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So there were places where I wasn't welcome. I was unsafe simply because I was from a different location, area. Um, Maybe you could draw parallel to what you're talking about as far as identity politics goes, and things like that, or people who prefer to be called LGBTQ to if they display or they flaunt their sexuality in a certain place, certain harm could happen. So I feel the youth in our culture have a lot of things to deal with. Whether if they were at risk youth because of their sexuality or because of the area that they're from. Um, I believe that we have to take care of them in a way that is helpful to them. It's not harming them. We're not supposed to tell them who they're gonna be when they grow up. They should already have a sense of who they are deep down inside. And as the more they grow up, they figure out who they are and where they're going with that. Welcome, Jesus. Um, we were just in the middle of a really fantastic talk. Your mic is off. I can't hear you. Your mic. All right. I wonder what she has to say. Oh, she said probably said talk about the book. So.
Oh yeah.
So thanks. So that's probably why she came in here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Oh, wow. We are more than halfway through and we haven't started talking about your book. I'm so sorry.
Well,
And
it's simple. I wrote a book. I am a schizophrenic poet. I hear auditory hallucinations. I see visual hallucinations. It's like I'm on peyote the whole time. Well, people try to pay $5,000 to go up in a mountain and experience 5 seconds of what I experience all day, every day. So people are paying the shaman, the medicine man, some money so they could experience voices and things like that. Their higher self and things like that. Am I saying my consciousness is way up there? No. But I have learned more from experience. And this book is ultimately a dedication to women who have died in the struggle. My spoken word wife is a vehicle or a character. Her character is like a vehicle that can take. How do I want to say? I use her to represent these women who have passed away in the struggle, whether they were going to work, whether they were something violent happened to them, and things like that. It's basically a way to honor them. I was traumatized by a situation where one of my homeboys accidentally uh, uh, killed a woman, and it made it hard for all of us that were in that neighborhood. Um, and I wonder what this woman could have become. I wasn't there, to be honest, to paint the picture. I wasn't there when that happened, but there was a drug problem. He was facing a drug problem. He was arrested and given life in prison. And as a teenager, he was feeding for drugs. He think he could make a quick robbery. That he said that he wasn't intentional. That the thing went off by accident. And how do you explain something like that to the judge, especially when you're a gangbanger? And so I started working on this book to because it was always on my mind. I'll go like, I wonder if she was a poet. I wonder if she was a artist, a teacher, a businesswoman. Who was she? Where is she? Where is her family? What's her mother think? What's her father think? These questions were with me as I grew up. I was maybe like around 16 years old when that happened, and those things that I never talked about. Then I started hearing things about women being kidnapped, indigenous women, where representing these women who've been missing with a red hand on their mouth. So I started seeing a lot of these things coming up, and then the case with Vanessa Guillen, the soldier from Texas who was decapitated by during the time she was a army or marine, or I'm not quite sure, army person, like personnel. And I wrote a poem for her. It's called My Beautiful Guerrera, and it was inspired by her.
do you have that poem right now?
I have. I think I know it off the mind. It goes something like this, but it's not in the book, But I have it, that poem led to these series of poems that I started writing. So it goes there. Her her sacred feminine flow fills up my soul. I play soft records, rocking my beauty queen's boat. She's bright eyed when I snatch away the thunderbolts from wannabe G's faking the funk for the gold. Jaguar 45 slaying tyrants and giants, punishing enemies standing defiant. My name is Shok Toksha, standing like a soldier. Zapotec Dakota and the god of warrior. Loving my beautiful guerrera to the beat. She's a demigoddess blessed by Aphrodite. It's the shock collar coasted by the blue ocean waters. Ready to. I can't. I can't remember.
That was awesome, though. That was awesome.
And it ends like this. Many hoes envy my spoken word wife, but she just laughs, dancing under the moon like it's cold witchcraft. And then I go into my verse. It goes like I'm dangerous to enemies when I ride. With my beautiful guerrera shining bright. She's a wet, stormy night like my west side dreams as I crack the all-seeing night with lightning. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So these poems, it started inspiring a series of poems. Also, what inspired this book was when I started going through psychosis and schizophrenia and things like that. When the dimensions open up, I started ruining a lot of my social relationships. People started cutting ties with me because I was acting out. I was too wild. I was too this. I was too that. And basically, with schizophrenia, it's something that isolates isolates you if the discernment, if you're having trouble with discernment and trying to figure out what's reality and what's another dimension or whatever's going on there. And so there was a woman that was a poet, um, and I don't know why the voices kept telling me, hey, bring her a cheeseburger, bring her. I did it so much to the point where she's like, yo, dude, you know, and I got a restraining order, so I took that made me feel fucked up. That made me feel so bad. Like I was like, fuck, I never would have done this, you know. But why these voices like this? Why these voices like cutting me off from all these things? And nobody wanted to talk to me for a long time, you know, because they were like, yo, this guy's not right, and that's what schizophrenia does. And so to deal with the loneliness, to deal with all that stuff, I started writing. I started writing, and the woman that put the restraining order on me, I took her as a model. She was a poet, and I said I started coming up with my spoken word wife. So then another model came in, and another and all the and then I realized that the women that I've been into all have been poets. They've been gifted in one way with language in a way that at the time I didn't realize when I was dating them or flirting with them and things like that. I didn't realize that back then, but they all had something to do with language arts. And so in my book, I said what I need is dream of a woman that could satisfy my need, my spoken word wife. That's where the title comes from. You know, it's like a big affirmation for a relationship that through that I'm able to talk about social justice themes, talk about poverty, and talk about entrepreneurial mindsets for young people. If they read it, they could get the ideas, you know, to be inspired to be money makers and things like that. And no way does it objectify the woman. I consciously did that, you know, to hoping that if young people are reading this, they're seeing character traits. You know, they're I'm describing the character of this person, describing the environments, how she moves in these environments where there's injustice, where there's all these things going on. So that's what my book is about. Thank you for asking me the questions. I'm not sure if Jesus is gonna join us right now, but my spoken word wife is available now on Kindle. So make sure you get your copy if you want a Kindle version. If you want to wait for the paperback, it'll be out soon in a few days. Not a few days, in maybe about a few weeks. As we're finalizing the process, and most importantly, before I end, do you have any more questions about what I've been saying, things like that?
Well, I want to point out to anyone who's watching this later, especially, if you go to the comments in the YouTube video, one of the last ones, because there are several from our channel, which is Jesus today. The one of the last ones is the pre-order link. So if anyone's like watching this later tonight or anything, go ahead, and if you want to pre-order, there's a link right there. It'll take you straight to the Amazon. So I just wanted to point that out. And then, do you have a favorite poem of the ones that are in this book?
Yeah, I have one. I have man, I love a lot of the poems. I feel like I could have worked on them some more, but I was working on this book for years. Just going through my emotions, my loneliness, and just reminiscing about the social contacts. One of the most important things that I miss is the feminine connection, that I was able to connect with, and because of that, I did this. So here's a poem about the honors of poet. Um, what is it? She's the MC who writes it down like it's witchcraft. When she licks her lips softening a boat cab crash, it's like hearing waves rolling onto Cali shores. But I'm the daring surfer with the boogie board. If I meet destiny, she spit like that. I wanted her to shout my name when I rap. I'm on the quest to get more bounce to the ounce. But watching three orca whales rise had me wiped out. Some people act like my comrades are roots as villains just because we're from the Harbor Street code chillin', and her story contains glory and thunder because I delivered the craziest numbers. She's like a shooting star and much more. Her honey words knock me off the floor to soar. All right, so that was one of those things,
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. And so I guess we could contact Jesus now. Let her know we're wrapping things up.
You know, I just want to keep asking you to keep doing more poetry, but I shouldn't put you on the spot like that. I will ask this: are you working on putting together a second book, though?
Actually, the book, I had a lot of poetry. I had maybe about more than 100 poems. But in this book, we only use about 42 poems out of those hundreds of poems, and my beautiful Guerrera, the one you just heard, that one was taken out, and we put all these other stuff in there so that I felt work with the concept. Part of it, that book is just dealing with my mental issue that I have with psychosis and things like that. So I even have imaginary wives, according to some people, but to me, it's real. These relationships that I have with the invisible world are real. And that's the part that scares the world about people with schizophrenia, people who can hear voices. And so I was able to collaborate with the voices around me to write a book where they once drove me mad. I was able to find a juncture where I was able to collaborate them, and sometimes they would give me the phrases to write down. I would hear the phrases from the air, and I would write them down. And so um, that's a little bit more detailed. There's poems about that in the book, and so I felt really free after finishing writing these books. I felt complete freedom. I felt like all that writing that I did, it put me in a situation where I had to be thankful for what I have experienced, what the experiences taught me, the good and the bad. And I was at peace with myself and all the things that happened. And all those relationships, I was able to learn from them. I was able to build new relationships with Jesus, with yourself. You know, I'm building new relationships now with people. You know, and so I feel like I'm already over that mountain, and it's all downhill from there. You know, it feels easy. You know, just going down the trail. And so now I just feel very happy to share this book with the public, and I'm very interested in what the questions that the public would generate, what they would say. I'm looking forward to all of that stuff, you know. So I look forward to a reading. So we don't have one scheduled down yet, but we'll have one. Yeah.
Well, so next week, we are going to be talking about, we're going to go back to talk about the Roe v. Wade some more and what has happened since. Like, I mean, I can only imagine how crazy this news week is going to be after that. But I'm so glad that we could pause on that and talk about your book today. I was so looking forward to that, and I'm so excited to read it because I haven't had a chance to either. And I'm looking forward to seeing that world. I I think about, like, in picturing it, I kind of imagine something like Hunter S. Thompson meets Lewis Carroll.
Can you tell me
And
about them? I don't know who they are. Can you tell me about them?
okay, so Hunter S. Thompson. Oh wait, okay. Have you ever seen the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
No.
Okay, Hunter S. Thompson was the journalist who invented what's called gonzo journalism, where you live the story while you're working on it. And a fictionalized version of one of his stories was placed in, like, was kind of, they added things and made it, even bigger, and it became a 1998 movie starring Johnny Depp. Um, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, for which Johnny Depp lived in his house, lived with Hunter S. Thompson to, like, learn all of the parts for it and to get replicas of the clothing and stuff like that. But Hunter S. Thompson, he lived just larger than life. He lived everything that he worked on, everything that he did. It was like huge, and he took everyone along for that ride. And then Lewis Carroll is the one who wrote Alice in Wonderland, like the Alice and the two books that make what people call Alice in Wonderland. Like, there's actually a couple of books for that. And so with Hunter S. Thompson, everything he wrote was very visceral. He did write on a lot of substances. I am not advocating that, just as an overall statement here. But because of that, he wrote very viscerally. Someone who has synesthesia, where they, like, hear colors and stuff, would write much the same way. And I imagine, because of the voices, you probably write in a similar manner.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited to read it.
That's exactly right. It is like going down the rabbit hole at first, you know, with schizophrenia, because they say your eyes are blind, and all the things that you see is a description of what the voice is telling you. Sometimes I'm out here by myself, and I feel like I'm in a room full of people, and they're conversating and talking and giving me details about situations and things like that. And all I could do is listen. Uh, I tend not to talk back to the voices. Some people do. If you ever seen a person talking to themselves in an argument or something like that, really passionate emotion. I don't do that. Mm, People have recommended me to do that, but I didn't do that. I don't do that. I tend to just get lost in the poetry of the voices. You know, they're very poetic, and they're very funny to me. They're to me, but because other people have experienced other situations where it's scary and things like that. And I'm not saying that I never experienced that, but for the most part, what I experienced is is genuinely humorous, loving, and patience. You know what I'm saying? But I understand when they get rowdy up, and when the voices get rowdy up, I get rowdy up because it's almost like you need emotion to they have a way of stirring your emotions. They have a way of looking at you and talking to you in such a way that you feel disempowered or empowered. You know, you feel, and a lot of people feel like, oh, they're talking down on me, I can't do anything, and they tend to live that way, and they feel almost like they're trapped in limbo. And so I was able to break free from that. I don't know exactly what I did different, but the more I went down the rabbit hole, like in Alice in Wonderland, the more I started seeing the bizarre and the strange. I started seeing these auditory hallucinations were much more interesting than the real world, you know, and the stories that they say and tell sometimes don't make sense until later because I experienced a lot of things that didn't make sense until years later. And now I'm here. I feel like I crossed the finish line, and now I'm here. Now I'm just a storyteller, telling you stories about this stuff, and I really hope to inspire schizophrenic people with mental illnesses too, because I was a wreck. I was a train wreck, you know, and things like that. I wonder if Jesus should get a messenger story message.
I I think she'll probably pop back in a minute. And I think it's great that you you are able to have that perspective now, and I really hope that it's something that, especially as your book gets reviewed out there, and like the hashtags pick up. I just imagine somebody searching for, like, looking for something to relate to. If
Mm-hmm.
they're newer to experiencing hallucinations, whether from schizophrenia or from other, like schizoaffective disorder, other things where there is a hallucination component. Actually, certain types of migraine headaches can cause a hallucination component to be present. Um, that they can read it and also see that, like, it doesn't have to be terrifying. It can be inspiring, or it can, basically, that there's not going to be a monster in the basement, of their mind. Because
Right.
when you hear about hallucinations, that you generally only hear about, um, people being terrified and yelling in the corner. And yeah, I taught psychology, so I know that that's not how it works. But the generally, people, even well educated people, if you've never known someone, or you've never studied it, schizophrenia, or hallucinations in general, like, people are very misinformed. So I think it's great that you are willing to put that out there, and also that you, like, you have a book out there. I think that's awesome. this is a great time to put something positive into the world. With all of
you,
the bad, putting something positive out there is
you know,
fantastic.
something. When I told the clinic that I was attending to be seen for psychiatry and all that stuff, all that stuff, the therapist. I wrote a book. They were amazed. They said like, man, you guys hardly ever do shit like that. You guys hardly ever write something like that. And to me, it was kind of an acknowledgement. I stand out of the crowd, but at the same time, I'm sad because all that talent that they have, yeah, they're real wonderful people. They're really out there and everything, but they're really wonderful people that can say things like that. And I thank you for your words, and they're very gracious. I think that's really nice that you're saying the things that you're saying. Um, I'm not quite sure what to do, what else to talk
Yeah,
about. If you have more questions, because um, we're waiting for
I,
Jesus.
yeah, I think she'll be up in a minute because I think we're right on the time. I'm going to remind anyone who might be watching that we do, whenever we're live, we have at least one of us watching our comments on the uh, YouTube page. So you can always chat with us, and you can always be part of that conversation. We always welcome that. So, uh, we welcome that, even if you disagree. But um, we like to have a chance to talk to our audience, and we also. Sorry, I just lost what I was going to say. Oh, and we also, our time slot is 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 2 p.m. Pacific, with occasional changes due to guests. We always post about that. And if you follow us on YouTube, and uh, we we always have our page up ahead of time, and you can like, subscribe, and if you hit the bell, it'll remind you.
That's right. Make sure you subscribe. We have these weekly talks, and we're always sharing ideas. Most importantly, we're trying to inspire hope and give direction and comfort people too in times of need. With the situation going on in the world, you could take a little break from it and see it from a schizophrenic's point of view. Um, we have also other artists who will be presenting their material in the coming months, like Kitty de la Sombra, who also is a poet. She also will have her book coming up. Um, there are many things that that we are doing as a community, as a collective. I mean, to continue uh, getting marginalized voices heard, and that's what Barrio Blues Press is all about. Me and Jesus connected a while back. How the book came to be is that I had wrote some poems and I sent it to her, and we established that we'll do a book. Since then, the book evolved into my spoken word wife. Originally, they were just love poems, but they were like heartbroken and things like that. But the more I got into the writing, it took on a different spirit. It evolved into something gracious, something beautiful, and I love my title of the book that I gave it. My spoken word wife. I think it would be an awesome movie. If, if there is a movie, awesome movie, I think it would be an awesome movie. I think also there's a lot
And if you're
there's a lot that happened, true stories and a lot of adventures that I took on while writing this book, and it all didn't make it to the book, but my plan is to talk about this. And yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, if you're a writer or you're an activist, like contact us because we have guests from all areas. We have talked to people about automation, international journalism, which are shows that are still available to watch on our YouTube. We have had horror writers, um, and just talked about so many things. So, um, if you're interested in getting involved, like contact us. Jesus will probably be the one to contact you, and it's it's definitely cool to see. I guess we see. I mean, it's not. I miss the days pre-COVID of where people could get together in a room, but this does allow us to talk to you no matter what part of the country you're in. I mean, technically, you could be overseas and we could still be sitting in the same room. So,
Right.
um, by
And
all means.
some of the books that Jesus, or I mean, Barrio Blues Press has released, their charity. The proceeds go to charity. I know when she wrote her Unity anthology, I was featured in it. Other poets like Matt Cedillo was featured in that one. The proceeds went to Doctors Without Borders, and that was given to them to help out with the cause. That's a social justice cause, you know. A lot of
That's an
people,
amazing organization. Doctors Without Borders is they save so many lives.
yes, and we need that. We need that conciencia. We need that consciousness out there. You know, in whatever way we figure out how to help. It was going through writing and describing the challenges of the world, and at the same time inspiring hope through writing. So a lot of you who are watching this might be inspired to do your own writing, tell your story in the context of social justice. Um, we're not social justice freaks, just to let you know. We're just people who care about humanity. You know, we care about it so much, and the metaphors and the words that we have are the same ones that many activists have used, and they're using social activism and things like that. So, with that said, I would like, Kitty, would you like to read some poetry?
Uh okay, let me find one here.
I'll say a few things while you look for your poem.
Okay.
Um, I rarely do this, but when I talk about schizophrenia, I don't talk about the disastrous uh, things that occur in my life. I talk about the wonderful things that have occurred in my life with schizophrenia. And so I'm basically doing my best right now to stay centered, to stay present while so many things are going on around me. Um, Sometimes it's painful to sit in a situation. I understand why some people cannot be social as much as they want to, but sometimes it's just unbearable to sit in a place and see all these things going on around you. It almost feels like an emergency to some people, and it is an emergency because um, whatever happens to the mind happens to the body, And so if your mind gets sick, your body gets sick. That's what I tend to believe. Or if your body gets sick, your mind goes to sleep too. So there's many things that we could talk about in these conversations about schizophrenia. I would really like to have a show where we're talking about schizophrenia and things like that. I don't want to use the term because the term is just so, it has so much attached to it. I feel like coming up with a new word. But as a poet, that's my challenge. What I could say that will create this new culture of seeing the mentally ill as just people and beautiful people. Because schizophrenics were beautiful people. And so I want to share that with you, Katie, because I know you have your social justice struggles that are attached to your identity politics. So you yourself have corrected me in the past um, with with um, with words, with just words, because words matter. And so I have to apologize to you for calling you her, right? And
My pronouns are they them, and it's a struggle for people because I'm a non-binary person, but I'm femme presenting. In other words, like I look clearly female, and that yet I'm non-binary. It is a struggle for people, and I know that, and so that's why, like, I will correct people, but I do not get mad because I understand that it is something where it's an issue that, it's hard for people to remember. And so unless someone is clearly doing it to be mean or to be disrespectful, I just give, a gentle reminder. And that's all, because they're important words, but intention is so much of that, like, and I think that is something too that people need to understand when they put their words out there. Like, even if, like, young poets, and when I say young, I don't necessarily mean chronologically young, but new to putting their words out there in public, um, are worried about, oh, I don't know if this is good enough. I don't know if this is okay. I don't know if this is ready. And you having to be able to say, but is it is this something I really feel? And is there anything in this that is meant to hurt people? And if you can say this is legitimately my feelings, and no, this is not set out to hurt anybody, like, that's that's the goal. You want to speak your truth, and you want to make sure that you're not trying to put things out there. Intention is what matters. And
how do you feel about um, when people post like memes? You know, uh, uh, sometimes sometimes you see a meme on social media. It's meant to be funny, right? But at the same time, I have a process where I go like, if I share this meme, maybe somebody in my friends list might be offended, you know, because they might take it as a disrespect to them. And so I tend not to share those things, even though, like, I see I see the humor in it. But I think I'm maturing in a sense that to make a decision to say no, I'm not gonna share that, simply because these people that I grew up with are in their own point in time in their consciousness, and whatever they're going, they're maturing in other ways, but um, still haven't developed a sense of judgment in certain areas, um, like 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 even for schizophrenia, or people with other sexuality. So I feel like I want to know from you, how do you see that?
Well, so if I see a meme that I really want to share, and it's something like, because I end up finding a lot of chronic illness memes because of having CRPS, and so it'll be a joke about the whole thing, like how people are always telling people with chronic illness, oh, if you just did yoga, if you just drank some green tea, and so like there are a lot of memes that are like, how to get rid of any chronic illness, do a yoga, drink 90 gallons of green tea, like, and it's a joke about all those things they tell you to do. And like, I know some people might not like it or might think it's ridiculous, but that kind of stuff I'll post. But because I have relatives on my social media, some of whom are younger, like under 18, and some of whom are quite a bit older, if I run into a meme that's something like a joke about like sex, like not gender or something, but like about, like actual sex, I will just forward it via messenger to a handful of people I think will find it funny,
Right, right,
instead of posting it,
right, right,
because it's like, basically my test will is this okay for my niece who is like 11 to see? Is it something that mom, which is my best friend's mom, who is, kind of conservative, will she say something to me about it?
right.
And if it passes the 11-year-old and mom test, then it goes on.
Right, right, right,
And if it
right, right,
doesn't, then I just send it to a handful of friends that are, I know are going to find it funny and are going to send it on to a few more friends.
right, right, right. Okay, okay. That works. That works because it's basically about taking care of people too, right? Taking
Yeah.
care of your people, your family, your friends, your communities. Taking care of all of that stuff. It's really about responsibility. And there are people who feel like they're taking care of us by sharing memes that feel like this could be offensive to somebody else, or things like that. Or sometimes we take it personal, when it has nothing to do with us. And so it's a good way to train yourself how to behave, and if you look at it that way in social media, if you look at it that way, responsibility, if you take it, I'm pretty sure it could impact your social reality too, as far as the comments and the things you say to other people, which will make it a more compassionate world that meets other people's needs, in terms of their struggles. And so, with that said, I'm wondering if you have poetry.
I do. I found one that this is one we had talked about Hunter S. Thompson, and I was thinking about a friend who passed away about a year ago. Um, he's someone who lived larger than life. And he would literally probably be walking around like the local city with a banner on him about, the political stuff. He was larger than life all the time. And it's called Nada de Estro Estrial de Todos Modos. I met you for the first time at least 5 times. When you were a waiter artist, I couldn't understand why you were in Hammond. People like you only come to places like this for anonymity or love. And that huge portfolio was like a sign on your head saying, I'm that guy. Someone like a creative love child of Thompson and Stedman. Back then, your love seemed to be for the next experience you were chasing. Years later, you're in your rabbit suit, creeping up on Halloween, but I'm running scared as Alice of a different tea party. You're not my March Hare. This is you, wide-eyed and frightening. Your costume haunts me in my dreams. Role reversal from the end of House of a Thousand Corpses, but you're not Otis Driftwood or even Captain Spaulding. The next time we meet is metaphorical. I thought commonality of our clocks was from your life of excess. You were always a young Huntress Thompson in public, though your stories came alive through paint strokes instead of typewriter keys. I half expected you to show up with a cattle prod one day, repurposed paintbrush on the business end. No, no one could accuse you of affecting subtlety. That indulgence has taken friends before. But when the brightest star entered your sky and you welcomed her, your world started turning on a slightly different axis. But that clock kept ticking. I realized you and I didn't know each other well enough for me to reach above your head, tracing it with my finger, and ask, "Where did you get this?" Not even because you would have mocked me, would you? But because you were off and running to another project, and so happily, hopelessly in love. Waiting for anything bored you, and you had a few different meanings for that. The last time I met you, you shaved your head and had a dapper suit. You had a suit body. My momentary admission awkward, you didn't care. Self censorship didn't interest you. That's when I should have asked. But none of this is real anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I feel like
I,
my battery's low.
yeah, I
So
think we need to wrap this one up.
gotta wrap it up. We'll just leave it on blank screen, I think.
But
Uh,
thank you for anyone who stayed with us this whole time. And I don't think anyone did live, but I'm hoping that some of I think we get most of our watchers after the show. So
right.
thank you to anyone who's still here. And thank you, Misael, for coming on and talking about your book.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
So on behalf of Radical Books and Activists, I'm Kitty de la Sombra. And this
Misael
is,
Juarez. Misael Juarez.
and we'll see you next week.
All right, cool. So, bye.
Bye-bye.